Greetings, travelers! In December of last year, I launched a survey on the Genshin Impact subreddit, and I received 11,178 responses. I believe, quantitatively, this is probably the largest survey ever conducted on the Genshin Impact subreddit. I spammed my survey over several weeks in the main Genshin subreddit, but I also spammed it in every single Genshin character subreddit as well. And I also plugged my survey in posts like when I attended the Game Awards in person to see Genshin win Player's Choice Award, as it should have. And I promised that I would publish the results of my survey in January of this year, and it is now March. Over the past few months, I've gotten several messages asking, where are the results of the survey? You said you'd post the results in January, and now it's February. And now it's March. Where are they? Well, a few things have happened since the beginning of the year. First off, I got laid off from my job. Secondly, I suddenly got caught up with a different project where I wrote a 30-page essay and made a 90-minute video talking about the movie Kimi no Na wa of all things. And I have a problem where when I work on things, I become obsessed and forget everything else, and the next thing I know, a whole month flies by. But also, the last reason these results took so long to announce is because the analytics I run on this data are wild. I made some big tables on Google Sheets with the data. Big tables! The analytics I ran on this data are kinda complex and took multiple weeks to finish, and to provide proof of the effort I put into these analytics, I will be including a link in the description below to the Google Sheets document where I came up with all the equations and calculations to create the results shown in this video. This will also involve sharing the original 11,178 source responses submitted to the survey by Redditors. To anyone concerned about privacy issues with sharing the original responses, I believe they are safe to share because while they contain personal information like age or race, there is no personally identifiable information like specific birthdays or emails or phone numbers. Essentially, there should be no problems with sharing this data because it would be impossible to trace any one response to any specific person in the world. But yes, I want to include every response, every process, and every equation in order to ensure full data transparency and trustworthiness of how the analytics of this video were run. And also because I think some people find it fun to look at. And if anybody notices any mistakes, please let me know in the comments below. But yes, after spending many days running analytics, I am finally ready to make a post announcing the results of the survey I conducted back in December. And I do actually feel bad for not delivering the results sooner and for not keeping my word that I'd release the results in January. So I do apologize for the delay, but I hope people understand. But yes, without any further ado, here are the results of the survey involving the esteemed opinions of over 10,000 Genshin Redditors. Who is the most popular character? Who is the most popular female character? And who is the most popular female character amongst iOS users on Asian servers? I will answer all of these questions and more, but first, a word from our sponsors. I don't have any sponsors. Oh, alright, let's start with some user stats. On my survey, the first question I asked is, which gender do you identify as? And of the 11,178 Redditors surveyed, we have 6,161 males, 3,599 females, 699 non-binary, and 719 people who clicked prefer not to say. Discarding the prefer not to say responses, that's 58.91% males, 34.41% females, and 6.68% non-binary. So perhaps predictably, there are more male Genshin Redditors than female or non-binary Genshin Redditors overall. But what about my server? On my survey, I asked, what server do you play on? And here are the responses, with 5,415 people from America, 3,354 people from Europe, 2,239 people from Asia, and 39 people from the SAR server, which is used in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau. And also 131 people saying prefer not to say. Again, discarding the prefer not to say responses, that gives us 49.02% Americans, 30.36% Europeans, 20.27% Asians, and 0.35% SARians. So right away, I think we should point out the bias towards Western servers, which makes sense because Reddit is a website primarily used by Western countries. So this survey is definitely more representative of Genshin Redditors than just overall Genshin, because otherwise Asia would definitely be the biggest server. But yes, let's look at the gender breakdown of each server, because why not? Here are all the genders Redditors identify as again, except this time the breakdowns are also split by server. Also, I'm going to ignore the SAR server due to the low sampling size, but from the remaining 3 servers, it's interesting to see the similar percentages across each server. But we do see that the Asia server seems to have the highest male skew of all the 3 servers, while Europe has the highest representation of females, albeit very slightly, and America has the highest representation of non-binary people. Anyways, another interesting question related to gender is the question of, which sibling protagonist did you choose? And here are the results of that question, with 46.24% of votes for Aether and 53.76% of votes for Lumine. And now, here are the results of that question, but categorized by gender. Immediately, it is apparent that males are much more likely than females to choose a protagonist of the opposite gender, with 74.22% of females choosing Lumine, compared to just 58.07% of males choosing Aether. And also, non-binary people are almost even in choosing between Aether and Lumine, with only a 48.88% and 51.12% breakdown, which seems kinda on brand. But okay, now that we've looked at both gender and servers, let's now look at platform. I asked, what platforms do you play on? Allowing users to select multiple platforms in case they play on, say, both PC and mobile. And here are the results. 7,847 PC, 3,065 Android, 2970 iOS, 986 PS4, 892 PS5, and 121 prefer not to say. And discarding the prefer not to say options, that gives us 49.79% PC, 19.45% Android, 18.85% iOS, 6.26% PS4, and 5.66% PS5. Man, Reddit really says PC Master Race, huh? Also, albeit quite narrowly, I'm surprised that Android beat out iOS, or that PS4 is still more popular than PS5. And also, of the 11,057 responses, 4,160 people play on multiple platforms, while 6,897 people report playing on only one platform. That's 36.27% of players playing on multiple platforms. In fact, here's all the multi-platform statistics. The average number of platforms played by a single Genshin Redditor is 1.425, and as you can see, only 4 people out of 11,057 marked having played on all 5 platforms. It's possible some or all of these 4 people might be trolls, and I do actually place measures to try and immediately identify then discard troll responses in this survey in order to help preserve data integrity. For example, the next category I'll look at after this is age. And for age, I actually disregard any responses with ages below 7 years old and above 68 years old. I kinda chose 7 as an arbitrary minimum because I guess it's a lucky number, and also I seriously doubt kids 6 years old or younger are either playing Genshin or browsing Reddit, much less both. Although, according to my survey, there is exactly 1 person who responded saying they're 6 years old. And if I had a bet on it, I'd assume that person was a troll, and so I discarded that response from the analytics. But if that 1 person actually was 6 years old, then I sincerely apologize to that 1 person. Your opinion can matter when you become 7. But yeah, the max age I set was 68. And why do you suppose that is? Well, gee, from the 11,178 responses I received, absolutely 0 people said they were 68 years old, and absolutely 0 people said they were 70 years old. But curiously, 10 people responded saying that they were 69 years old. 10 people! In a valley of zeros. Why do you suppose that is? But yeah, in my effort to eliminate troll responses, I discard the opinions of trolls who answered with ages of 69 or above. And if the 13 people who identified as being 99 or 100 years old were actually that old, I apologize if you feel misrepresented, but I felt it was better to be safe than sorry in the name of data integrity. But yeah, other criteria I use for identifying trolls can be seen in the original sheet that I linked to in the description below. and hopefully these measures were helpful in preventing the proliferation of false answers, which I do take seriously. But yes, on that topic, the next question I asked Genshin Redditors was, what is your age? And here's a graph showing all the ages in a big old bar chart. While this survey had 11,178 responses in total, only 6,643 people voluntarily entered their age, which actually made this question by far the least answered question on the survey, as it seems people are most hesitant when it comes to entering their age into a survey. But yes, as mentioned earlier in this video, I filtered out any responses younger than 7 or older than 68. And after filtering out those troll responses, the average age of the average Genshin Redditor is 23.147 years old. The mean of the 6,643 responses was 23.147 years old, with a standard deviation of 5.568 years, a median of 22 years, and a mode of 20 years. Also, I'm just always very happy whenever I see graphs of large sampling sizes start to make form-fitting shapes all on their own, with like this little hill we see going on here. It makes me feel, even if just briefly, that there is order in this universe. Anyways, this now brings us to the spiciest category for user demographics that I asked about on my survey, and that question is race. Here's where I must confess that my American bias comes in. The categories I chose for race I just took straight from the US Census Bureau, while also making Hispanic its own race because it made the question simpler. But something I've learned is that there isn't really a universally agreed upon set of different races, because one of the more common complaints I got when I released the survey is that, for example, in the continent of Asia, the single race of Asian is way too broad. There's so many subcategories of like South Asian, East Asian, Southeast Asian, or even like Middle Eastern, which are all quite different from each other. So yeah, this question wasn't perfect, and if I ever redid a survey for a global audience, I would make more subcategories of race for people to choose. And I apologize if anyone felt misrepresented by this question. But having said that, here are the results of the question, what is your race? I guess it's no surprise that Reddit is mostly white people. Congratulations! Also, interestingly, 7% of users identified as being multiracial, while 93% of users selected only one race. In fact, here are the multiracial statistics, and the average number of races the average Genshin Redditor has is 1.0784 races. But yeah, there are other cross-analytics I do with race, and also more stats on genders, servers, and platforms, but I'm going to leave those in the sheets for people to look at if they're interested. And now, I'm going to shift from stats on user demographics to actual stats about the game. The first game-related question I ask is, how much money on average do you spend each month on Genshin Impact? And here are the results, and the most popular category is free-to-play! Genshin is free-to-play friendly. And interestingly, it is more probable for people to pay for both Welkins and Battle Pass than Welkins by itself. And if we categorize as between $5 and $25 as fish, and between $25 and $250 as dolphin, and above $250 as whale, we have 51.36% of our ecosystem as fish, 15.10% as dolphins, and 2.85% as whales. Well, if these are fish, dolphins, and whales, what do we refer to the 30.69% of free-to-play players as? Well, in my opinion, these are the fishermen, because free-to-play players truly reap the benefits of the sacrifice of the economic ecosystem. But yeah, assigning these values to each category, we can calculate that the average Redditor spends $37.75 each month on Genshin Impact. The top 0.81% of Redditors contribute to 29.22% of Genshin's total revenue, more than any other category below them. And if that isn't capitalism, then I don't know what is. Anyways, next question is, favorite region? And the favorite region is Sumeru, with 3,608 votes, or 32.28% of the vote. Perhaps recency bias came into play here, or maybe Sumeru really is the most innovative region since it is the newest, but as a creator of this poll, I will admit that I voted for Liyue as my favorite region, and I think it is a crime that it was voted the least favorite region. A crime! Liyue is peak Genshin. Literally mountain peaks of Genshin. But yeah. Anyways, next question is favorite element. And the most popular element is Anemo, with 2,985 votes, or 26.70% of the total vote. Interestingly, there seems to be a stark difference in elemental preference between genders, with Anemo being vastly more popular amongst female and non-binary voters, while male users had a stronger preference for Electro. But it seems the coalition of female and non-binary voters were able to topple male preference from the #1 spot. So hooray for women's rights and non-binary rights. And now, the next question is, favorite weapon class? And the most popular weapon class is the sword, with 2,821 votes, or 25.24% of the total vote. Later in this video, when I ask people what their favorite character is, I'll actually group the total votes of characters based on the weapons each character people voted on used, and whether or not people actually liked characters with swords the most is, well, you'll find out later in the video. Because the next question now is, what AR level are you? And here is a nice bar chart of the AR levels of 10,189 Genshin Redditors who answered this question on the survey. And perhaps surprisingly, the most frequent AR level is the max AR level, or AR level 60, with 2,787 votes, or 27.35% of all votes. This is surprising because this is a feat that should take nearly 2 whole years of constant playing to achieve. And so it's strange that the most exclusive of ranks is the most prevalent amongst Redditors, or at least Redditors who willingly answered a survey. But maybe this isn't too surprising because Genshin Redditors as a whole are perhaps representative of the most devoted of the fanbase. Or perhaps this is a sign that Hoyoverse should raise the limit on AR levels. Because yeah, the average AR level of Genshin Redditors is 57.031, with a standard deviation of 4.403. And now, time for the part of the survey that everyone is probably most excited for, the character popularity poll. Who is the most popular character of Genshin Impact amongst Genshin Impact Redditors? Let's do a top 5 countdown. In 5th place, with 1,310 votes, is Child. In 4th place, with 1,485 votes, is Zhongli. In 3rd place, with 1,578 votes, is Raiden Shogun. And in 2nd place, with 1,590 votes, is Kazuha. And in 1st place, with 1,647 votes, is Wanderer, or Scaramouche. Wow, what an upset. While most people would probably expect the #1 spot from the usual favorites like either Kazuha or Raiden Shogun, nope, it's Wanderer. What a surprise. What an unpredictable result. What an obvious example of recency bias. Because yeah, I conducted the survey over the month of December, and the most recent character to be released at the time of this poll was The Wanderer, released on December 7th, 2022. And so it might be no surprise that the most recent character somehow got the most votes. But to be fair, the character of Scaramouche and the intrigue surrounding him that has had fans clamoring for him for years until his eventual release, and the fact that he can fly is no joke. So congratulations to Scaramouche for winning 1st place of the Genshin Impact Reddit popularity poll. Anyways, here are the rest of the results for who is your favorite character, and while I show this, I just want to remind everyone that this survey was conducted in December of 2022, meaning that new characters like Alhaitham, Dea, Yao Yao, and Mika were not included in the survey and won't be appearing in this video. But yeah, feel free to pause the video to take a look at the entire results. Anyways, let's now look at the most popular characters as voted by different genders. And here are the top 5 characters as voted by male voters. As we can see, the most popular character among male Genshin Redditors is Raiden Shogun. Interestingly, Raiden Shogun isn't even in the top 10 of characters voted by female or non-binary voters, suggesting that Raiden Shogun has a heavily skewed male bias, because here are the top 5 characters as voted by female voters, with the most popular character among female voters being Wanderer. And lastly, here are the top 5 characters as voted by non-binary voters, and the most popular character amongst non-binary voters is Wanderer again. And similarly, Wanderer doesn't even appear to be in the top 10 characters voted by male voters either, which suggests that, similar to the vote of favorite element, the coalition of female and non-binary voters were able to together topple the most preferred character amongst male voters in order to place Wanderer on top as the most popular character of Genshin Impact. So hooray for women and non-binary folks! Anyways, let's now take a look at the age of users who voted for various characters. Interestingly, the character with the oldest voters is Kuki Shinobu, whose voters were 24.479 on average, and the character with the youngest voters was Kale, whose voters were 21.69 on average. And now, just for fun, let's look at the most popular characters by race. And now, here are the most popular characters by server. And here are the most popular characters by platform. As we can see, Wanderer, Kazuha, and Raiden are all pretty popular across the board, so congratulations to these winners. However, after conducting this overall poll, I think it should be noted that 5-star characters are significantly more likely to be more popular than 4-star characters. In fact, they are specifically 3.5 times more popular, because 5-star characters on average receive 808.742 votes each in the poll, while 4-star characters on average receive 230.667 votes each in the poll. In fact, because I reckon that 4-star characters would have a disadvantage in the overall popularity poll, I felt it would only be fair to conduct 2 more polls with only 4-star and 5-star characters respectively to give characters a chance against their equal rarity counterparts. So, starting with the Who is your favorite 4-star character poll, let's kick it off with another top 5 countdown. The most popular 4-star characters, when users were asked to specifically vote on 4-star characters, in 5th place, with 1630 votes, is Kuki Shinobu. In 4th place, with 1645 votes, is Bennett. In 3rd place, with 1670 votes, is actually a 2-way tie between Beidou and Yanfei. In 2nd place, with 2,099 votes, is Heizo. And in 1st place, with 2,582 votes, is Fischl. All hail the almighty Prinzessin, and congratulations to Fischl for taking the title of most popular 4-star character of Genshin Impact. Although, interestingly, when looking at the overall poll, Fischl is actually only the 2nd most popular 4-star character, reaching 22nd place in the overall poll with 562 votes, while the most popular 4-star character in the overall poll, reaching 20th place with 607 votes, is Kaya. But strangely, in the poll concerning only 4-star characters, Kaya took only 8th place. So there seems to be a different sort of psychology going on when people are asked to rank 4-star characters when specifically told to vote for 4-star characters versus all characters in general. So that's pretty interesting. And now, having done that, let's move on to the poll where users were asked to vote on only 5-star characters. And kicking off a top 5 countdown again, in 5th place with 1547 votes is Child. In 4th place, with 1755 votes, is Zhongli. And in 3rd place, with 1869 votes, is Wanderer. Surprisingly, despite winning the overall poll, Wanderer only reached 3rd place in the 5-star character poll. So it's anyone's game as to who wins 1st place. In 2nd place, with 2,103 votes, is Raiden Shogun. And in 1st place, with 2,247 votes, is Kazuha. Congratulations to the Wandering Samurai for winning the title of the most popular 5-star character in Genshin Impact. Or at least when asked specifically about 5-star characters. Anyways, now that we've looked at the popularity of characters over various user demographics and compared across rarities, let's now look into popularity results sorted by aggregate characteristics of characters. For example, let's first look at how popular regions associated with each character are based on the results of the character poll. For reference, here are the results from when I asked, what is your favorite region, independent of favorite character selection. However, based on the results of the character poll, characters from Mondstadt are the least popular with an average of 359.8 votes per character, or 17.16% of the vote, with Sumeru being the second least popular with an average of 454.091 votes per character, or 21.65% of the vote, followed by Liyue as the second most popular with an average of 559.222 votes per character, or 26.66% of the vote. And Inazuma is the most popular with an average of 724.188 votes per character, or 34.53% of the vote. So when it comes to characters, Inazuma is actually more popular than Sumeru, which won the original question of favorite region. Similarly, let's compare the results of favorite element with the popularity of which elemental characters were chosen in the character poll. Here are the results of the original question of favorite element for reference, and here are the results when taking average votes per character of various elemental types. And in first place, we have Anemo with an average of 620.8 votes per Anemo character, or 17.65% of the vote. So it does seem the popularity of Anemo characters aligns with Redditors voting Anemo as the favorite element, which is pretty cool. And so next, let's see if the popularity of weapons corresponds to the popularity of weapons based on the characters using those weapons in the character poll. Here are the results of the original question of favorite weapon for reference, and here are the results when taking average votes per character of various weapon types. And in first place, we have polearm users with an average of 653.545 votes per polearm character, or 25.88% of votes. And so this might be a sign that Hoyoverse will continue making polearm characters. But also, for sure, the votes of polearm users were definitely skewed by having 2 Archons using polearms in this survey. Anyways, the last aggregate I want to look at is the popularity of various model types amongst Genshin characters. For those who don't know, all Genshin characters currently fall under one of 5 different model types: short female, medium female, tall male, and tall female. And the least popular Genshin character model type is short female, with an average of 300.833 votes per short female character, or only 11.24% of the vote. You can really feel the Kiki hate here, can't ya? But yeah, in fourth place is medium female characters, with an average of 411.739 votes, or 15.38% of the vote. And in third place is tall female characters, with an average of 535.75 votes, or 20.02% of the vote. And in second place is medium male characters, with an average of 612.571 votes, or 22.89% of the vote. And in first place are tall male characters, with an average of 815.714 votes, or 30.48% of the entire vote. What I find really interesting is that among both genders, there is an upward trend in popularity based on how tall you are. But height differences aside, in general, male characters seem to be more popular than female characters on average. In fact, when looking at just gender, male characters on average received 680.286 votes each, while female characters on average received only 431.805 votes each. Thus, male characters on average are 1.575 times more popular than female characters. And they say Genshin is a waifu game. To be fair, the explanation for this is most likely that there are far more female characters than male characters in the game, allowing for there to be greater variance in female character popularity that brings the female average down. But, doing more analysis on gender, let's look at the preferences for character genders based on the gender of voters. Here are the breakdowns of how many votes on average each gender gives to characters of different gender types, and male voters are much more even in their preferences of male and female characters, while female and non-binary voters tend to much more heavily skew towards voting for only male characters, because male voters on average give only 3.182% more votes to female characters over male characters, while female voters give 210.676% more votes to male characters over female characters. and non-binary voters give 180.981% more votes to male characters over female characters. Female and non-binary voters show absolutely no mercy and their apparent preference for male characters. Anyways, of course the results of all these aggregate averages are also heavily influenced by the number of 4-star and 5-star characters constituting each category, with like female characters obviously being weighed down because there are generally more female characters compared to male. So I actually did calculate aggregates further based on both rarity and other characteristics, but this video is already getting too long, so I'll just include them in the sheets linked in the description below for people to look at if anyone is interested. But yeah, for anyone who watched all the way until this point, the final section of this video will talk about the bonus questions I listed at the end of my survey. And I'm just gonna rattle through them quickly at a higher level here. If you have any interest in seeing like the most popular weekly boss amongst 21 to 25-year-olds, I calculate very granular analytics in the original Google Sheets linked in the description below. But yes, first bonus question, favorite elemental reaction? Here is probably the most controversial question of the survey. Probably the biggest complaint I received was that I didn't include any secondary elemental reactions like Hyper Bloom, Burgeon, or Shatter. I thought I wanted to make the survey simple by only including the primary elemental reactions, and by the time people started complaining, I already had several thousand responses, and so I couldn't make additions to the question without ruining the integrity of the question. And so I apologize to anyone disappointed by that. And if anyone in the future wishes to survey people asking their favorite elemental reaction in Genshin Impact, please include secondary reactions as well. But yes, back to the poll, here are the results of the most popular elemental reaction. And the most popular is Swirl, with 2,307 votes, or 21.42% of the total vote. This seems to fall in line with Anemo being the most popular element, so congratulations to Anemo and Swirl for continuing to dominate the elemental questions. Anyways, second bonus question is favorite weekly boss. And the favorite weekly boss amongst Genshin Redditors is Child, with 3,069 votes, or 28.96% of the entire vote. I guess the female simps voted pretty hard to bring Child to the top of this poll. But yeah, third bonus question is favorite field boss. And the most popular field boss amongst Genshin Redditors with 2,275 votes, or 13.41% of the entire vote is Magu Kenki. And now for the fourth bonus question, favorite enemy type. And the most popular enemy type, with 2,703 votes, or 50.21% of the entire vote, is the Eremites. And now, for the final bonus question, and perhaps the most important question of the survey, I asked Genshin Redditors, out of 10, how would you rate Genshin Impact? And here is a bar chart showing all responses from 1 through 10, and the average of all these votes, and the final score that Redditors as a community have awarded upon Genshin Impact is 8.2645 out of 10. 82.645%. That's pretty good, with a standard deviation of 1.2657. And that is the answer to maybe the most important question of the survey. Or is it? Psych! There's still one more question to talk about from the survey, and this one is actually the most important question of the survey. And that question is, with 192 different possible answers that took me a really long time to copy into the survey, is, what is your favorite daily commission? And doing a top 3 countdown, in third place, with 675 votes, or 8.05% of the total vote, the third most popular daily commission is Increasing Danger! This is the commission where you just have to destroy 2 Hilichurl towers, or more specifically, the shortest daily commission in the game. In second place, with 700 votes, or 8.35% of the total vote, is the Measure of a Mushroom, and that's where you bounce on mushrooms. And in first place, achieving a narrow victory with 712 votes, or 8.49% of the total vote, the number 1 most popular daily commission amongst Genshin Redditors is Emergency. That's the one where you defeat a random enemy like a Fatui agent or Ruin Guard. I suppose it's the most popular daily commission for, like, its simplicity, which I guess is kinda cool. Well, I guess that's the end of the poll. Thanks for watching! If you like this video and are interested in seeing other nerdy kind of content, please consider subscribing. I kind of make videos about whatever I want, but what I do work on, I try to put in as much effort as I can, because this video took a lot of work to make. But yeah, thanks again for watching. and I hope you all continue to have fun playing Genshin Impact, and that you find many, many primo gems in your future. And yeah. Okay. Bye!